Kevin, we'll do that video at the end. Give you a few minutes. When was the last time your mouth got you in trouble? Yesterday, last week, 10 minutes ago? Have you ever said something you wish you hadn't? I think we all could say that. Or have you ever been at the receiving end of a biting or a thoughtless comment that has left you wounded and just feeling, oh, so down? Sometimes we don't consider our words. I want to tell you about a young man who was working in a produce department, and a lady came up to him and said, "Can I buy half a head of lettuce?" And the young man just went, "Lady, God makes them in whole heads, and that's the only way we sell them." And she said, "But I've been a customer here for years. Could you just I just want half a head." He said, "Well, I guess I could ask the manager." So he marches up to the front of the store, and he goes to the manager and he says, "Listen, there is this lame-brained idiot of a lady back there that wants to buy half a head of lettuce." And he sees the manager going, and he realizes that she's standing right behind him. And he says, "And this lovely lady would like to buy the other half." And the manager came up to him a little while later and said, "You know what? That was really thinking on your feet. Where did you ever learn that?" And he said, "I grew up in Grand Rapids. And, Grand Rapids is known for producing some amazing hockey teams and some really ugly women." And the manager goes, but my wife is from Grand Rapids." And the young man says, "And which hockey team does she play for?" Every day, we speak thousands of words. It would fill volumes. And some are carefully planned and thought out, and others are spoken impulsively. Some are spoken quietly, and some at full volume. Some of our words are meant to encourage and to help others, and sadly, others are used to tear others down, to hurt, to belittle, to retaliate. But most of our words are rarely spoken with the thought as to what they will be perceived as, how they will affect the person that's listening to them. When you go to the doctor, it's interesting that one of the first things they tell you to do is go, "Ah," and they want to look at your tongue because it is a precursor, it's an index of the health of the overall body. So too are what is produced by the tongue, our words, an index, a precursor, an indication of our spiritual health. Matthew 12:34, Jesus warns that for out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks. And Proverbs 21 says, "He who guards his mouth and his tongue keeps himself from calamity." The tongue is for the most part hidden. We rarely see it, unless you're a little kid, or my grandmother who used to stick out her tongue constantly whenever she didn't hear something she didn't like. But your tongue can express or repress. It can release or restrain, enlighten or obscure, adore or abhor, offend or befriend, affirm or alienate, build or belittle, comfort or criticize, delight or destroy. James is talking to us about the importance of the words we speak. Each word will have an impact, both with God who hears every word that we will ever speak and judges us on our words, and on those that hear the words we speak. In Matthew 12, again, Jesus says, "But I say to you, that every idle word men may speak, they will give account of it on the day of judgment. For by your words you will be justified, and by your words you will be condemned." This morning I want to give you some practical tips on how to hold your tongue, how to tame your tongue, as James says. Because the stakes are high. Proverbs 18 puts it this way: the tongue has the power of life and death. Your words can bring life. Your words can also bring a death of sorts in your relationships with spouses and children, your parents, your siblings, your neighbors, your friends, your coworkers. Our tongues can build each other up, but they can also tear each other down. The last few weeks we've been looking at the book of James. There's only 5 short chapters, but there are some amazing practical advice in these 5 short chapters. Practical sound bites for life. And this is one of them. Throughout the whole book, James is encouraging his readers to learn about the truth from God's perspective, not just their own. And in the 4th chapter, he speaks very specifically to gossip and slander. The Greek words, and yes, I looked it up again. The Greek word for slander is katataleo, and the Greek word for gossip is phistouris. And these 2 words, gossip and slander, we have built entire industries on these. Think the National Enquirer or TMZ. We have participated in this gossip and slander because we have read it or listened to the sly innuendos and the coarse language. And we do it in our own lives sometimes, relishing those juicy bits about someone else that is intended to pull them apart, designed to cut them down, to destroy. And just as damaging as gossip and slander is another word that is a particular unfavorite of mine: sarcasm. That also comes from the Greek word sarkasmos, which means quite literally to tear flesh, to bite the lip in rage, to sneer. Sarcastic statements, they say, are a true lie. It's intended to be both funny and mean. Some language experts suggest that sarcasm is used as a gentler insult, a way to tone down criticism with indirectness and humor. Instead of saying, "Oh, how can you keep this room so neat?" to your teenager, instead of saying, "Oh, this room is a pigsty." But other researchers have found that the mocking, smug, superior nature of sarcasm is really perceived as more hurtful than direct criticism. The root word, sarkazine, the Greek, means to tear flesh like dogs. And it gives you a really good picture of how sarcasm is used to tear down. And we use sarcasm more with our friends than with our enemies. We use sarcasm online an awful lot. In fact, I had a conversation with somebody this week who said, if someone could invent a sarcasm font, they'd make millions, because we use it a lot. There does seem to be truth in the old adage that you tease the ones you love the most. And sarcasm is just mean-spirited teasing. The church that James was writing to, and we've heard in the last few weeks that it is most likely those who belonged in the synagogue in Jerusalem and left, whether it was by these bitter words that were spoken, the gossip and the slander that had become commonplace in the Jerusalem church. These folks were using their tongues to destroy each other. Someone has said that great minds discuss ideas, average minds discuss events, and small minds talk about people. And the church in Jerusalem was being characterized by these small-minded people who gossiped about each other and tore each other down with their tongues. And I wonder if our society isn't just a little bit like that today. We are quick to avoid the big things like murder and stealing, but we often assassinate others with our language, by the way we use our tongues, by the words we speak, whispered out of the side of our mouths. Husbands have stabbed wives with words that cut sharp as daggers. Wives have lashed out with tongues that cut and pierce. Parents have devastated their children by careless words and by repeated blasts of venom. And children have exploded to their parents with volleys of words, hurtful words that are like bombs going off. Families and relationships have been wiped out by wagging tongues that have sliced, diced, and chopped people into shreds. Do you remember the saying, "Sticks and stones can break my bones, but words can never hurt me"? I don't know who came up with that, because it is so not true. Broken bones can heal. Broken spirits have a much harder time of it. Many of you will remember Karen Carpenter, who after many years died at the age of 32 from complications from anorexia nervosa. And there was a documentary called The Karen Carpenter Story. And in USA Today, on commenting on the program, they were asking the question, but what brought on Karen's obsession with weight? And the answer was given that a reviewer many years before had once referred to Karen as Richard's chubby sister. It's hard to fathom that a single careless comment could cause that much devastation. But if we dig deep into many things, we will find that to be the case. We don't have to go back as far as Karen Carpenter. We have heard on the news recently, sadly, not one or two, but many stories of young people who were bullied by words, who took their own lives. Words can kill. I read this week about a woman who was told that she had a throat condition and she was being told not to talk for 6 months. Totally couldn't do it. She had 6 kids and a husband, and she wondered how she was going to do it, but she did it. She said that she used a whistle to get the kids' attention, and if she wanted to say something, she would write it down on a little pad and give it to them. After 6 months, her voice came back, and when she was asked how did she find the whole experience, she said, "You'd be surprised how many notes I crumpled up and threw in the trash before I gave them to anyone. Seeing my words before anyone heard them had an effect that I don't think I can ever forget." Where does all the garbage come from that comes out of our mouths? How do we let our words get to be so painful? Why is it so hard for us to say kind things with our tongues? It says in the Bible that it is not our strength that will change how we talk, but relying on the strength of the Lord. Jesus says, "For out of the overflow of the heart the mouth speaks. For out of the heart come evil thoughts, murder, adultery, sexual immorality, theft, lies, gossip, and slander." So if we are instead filling our hearts with care and encouragement, doesn't it follow that that will be what overflows into our relationships? So then here are my helpful hints for taming or holding your tongue. Number 1, talk less. Your chances of blowing it with your words are directly proportional to how much your mouth is open. Abe Lincoln said, "It is better to remain silent and be thought a fool than to open your mouth and remove all doubt." And Calvin Coolidge said, I have never been hurt by anything I did not say." Romans 12 says, if you can't say something good, say nothing. And Proverbs 11 says, keep confidential matters confidential. Talk less. 2, use the acronym THINK before you say anything. Ask yourself, is it true? Remember, the better, the juicier the gossip, the less likely it is to be true.